Hi, everybody. Welcome to We Didn't Turn Out Okay. I'm so excited to introduce our guest today.
There's a big guest.
My husband,
big guest.
Matty Mo.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me, Jen.
Thanks for coming on a whim. So, We Didn't Turn Out Okay. That's the name of the podcast. Number one, did you know that?
Definitely not.
You did not?
No, I did not.
Okay. And
But I have no social media. So for people that don't know, I have no social media, no Instagram, no Facebook, nothing like that. So I'm a very private person. And I think my wife could not be more the opposite. If she goes to the bathroom, I think she has to post about it. So
we can get into how you feel about that. But in terms of the title, which you didn't know what it was, so that being said, what do you think it means?
I don't know. What does it mean? Or am I supposed to guess?
Yeah, you're supposed to, I guess, try.
Is it in reference to me?
No. Why would it be you? I didn't turn out okay because of you.
No, I'm joking.
Oh, like you didn't turn out okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, this is all inspired by you
by me,
and how not okay you are.
It's like a therapy session for me.
It is for everybody on, I think, including myself each time. So get ready.
Good. You need to hear more of the husband's perspective.
Yeah. I felt like you would be a good way to kind of, start that. We'll have some more husbands on, but you're paving the way.
Great. I feel I'm honored.
Ready?
Yeah, I'm honored.
So what do you think it means in relation to what I do in parenting when I say that it's called We Didn't Turn Out Okay?
I think maybe that there's always room for improvement, but if I had to give an educated
guess. As a parent, person.
Yeah, more as a parent, because I assume that's what's in reference to. But
yeah. And I guess I've alluded to it a little bit in all of the episodes, but I think we all hear from our parents or grandparents when they're doing something and we might say, oh, I don't do it that way. Or they might see us doing something completely different in our parenting. And they'll say something like, oh, well, I didn't do any of that and you turned out okay. So it's sort of a spin on that. And not to say that we didn't, but no one's always perfectly okay. And I think when we kind of unveil those corners of where we're not perfectly okay, we learn a lot. So I wanted to start out by asking you, where do you feel you see yourself in our daughters? We can start with Tess.
So for Tess, I would say she's competitive like me and is a terrible loser like Daddy also. So one thing we can work on, and one trait which I think is also obviously necessary and good. Yeah,
when you say terrible loser, we know with her sister when she's not winning at a game or just even if we're playing chess or something with her or racing her, if she doesn't win, she gets really triggered and upset by that. But even, she had a play date that other time where they were playing Chutes and Ladders, and I think each of them won, but we saw Tess get annoyed. Yeah, having a harder time. I wouldn't necessarily say her school or teachers would say that, but we know deep down that she hates losing.
For sure.
So that's what we mean by a terrible loser. I was telling her the other day, even though I was such a good student and shy and sort of like, nothing.
You had that trait too?
Yeah. That in gym class, they would say like needs to work on sportsmanship and stuff like that. So it might not be just from you. But thinking back, you played basketball, you were super competitive there, and I see you competitive even when you're playing football, like on the beach. But do you feel like there was something that made you that way, or it's sort of in your blood?
Yeah, sort of in your blood. I don't think that's something that, I think that's in a lot of people, right? Especially if you grew up playing sports and you're around sports, I think that's just part of the game, right? So.
Yeah, I think there's certain elements that we can help to kind of help our kids not be
But that's
bad.
necessary for life, I think, which is obviously a big
I think
driving
there's
factor,
good
just motivating factor.
Yeah, there's good competitive, and then there's the competitive like you where you like bite your shirt. And
My kids do that too. They got the good traits and the bad.
Or when you're watching football and, might toss the remote, something like that. But then I think there's competitive wanting to do your best. And, you know, how do we balance that? I always talk about, or not always, but say when you're racing your kids and giving head starts or letting them win, how that's not really setting them up for being good losers, right?
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think they have to lose. That has to be part of the game because that's life, right? So if you're setting them up,
to always
not
win,
to prepare them, I think that's obviously detrimental in the longer term.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think you and I have ever talked about that, but we both align with that and not giving them these head starts or beating them sometimes.
We don't talk about parenting so much. I think you do the parenting and I sort of either listen or don't listen.
You've also talked about this with Tess, focusing on the experience. You've said to her it's not just about, you know, if we're going to do something, it's not just about winning at whatever we're going to do. It's fun to play and to experience the activity.
For sure.
And did you feel that you were able to do that when you played competitive sports, or it was always focused on winning?
No, it was the game. It was not necessarily winning. You know, it was obviously we loved playing whatever it was, whatever the sport was.
So if you lost, you didn't go home upset?
You know, maybe when I was younger, but obviously that's something that, you know, diminishes obviously as I got older.
I think I can talk about a funny story that you've told a lot of people. You know, your dad at your games. If we're talking about competitive, can you maybe, if you're comfortable, say an example of if he was a competitive dad in the stand?
He was a competitive fan, I should say. He was our craziest fan. He came to all the games. My dad was retired, so he was the first one there, the last one to leave. And he was just very loud, very vocal. And I think one game he accused the scorekeeper of having the wrong score and said, you know, she was smoking pot or said something. And then another teacher or someone at the game heard him and then got him banned from the game. So, you know, I had a crazy father. That probably rubbed off on me too.
Right.
And still do have a crazy father.
An element of that. Like my dad really wants me to win. So maybe that mattered.
He was more rooting for the team. It wasn't necessarily, you know, pushing me. Yeah. So it was all in good.
So you never felt like you were disappointing him if you lost.
And it wasn't like that. There was no pressure on me. This was just him supporting us. It was the good way.
Okay. And then Nell, is there anything that she is or does that reminds you of you as a kid?
She's way more like you. She's outgoing. She dances. She's singing. She's in front of the camera. She's the opposite of me. You know, I've never done anything like this, and I hope I don't have to ever again.
So many
but
things.
She's like mommy in that way. She's not shy. She's out front, and
so nothing, you know, sticks out as something that reminds you of you.
She reminds me more of you, if I had to.
So it's funny. I've seen this meme or video recently on Instagram that your second kid is the kid you always wanted to be, but didn't get to be, or something like that, or possesses the qualities about you that maybe society didn't allow you to be. And I do think that I started out as a kid on that trajectory. Like I did competitive dancing and solo dances and things like that, you know, more in front of the camera than Nell. But then I don't know when or how it happened, became very self-conscious probably around the time when most kids do. Maybe it was like 12 or 11 and it completely changed. And I know, yeah, maybe, you know, felt insecure or this or that to a real extent. And then even though I always in my mind wanted to be, you know, maybe out there, I didn't feel comfortable enough. And so I really hope Nell maintains that.
So when did that change for you? What
I mean, there was a few things that we could, you know, say it's about, but I think I'll sum it up as I became more self-conscious and aware of
I'm asking the opposite. What made you become more self-confident?
Oh, and then later, so it's interesting that you said that I'm like Nell. That was not always the case. I think it was definitely, I'd say, college, which is interesting that it took that long. And I think it was maybe starting new, so to speak, you know, in a new setting and finding friends that I felt confident around, and not right away. And then from there, continuously like growing into myself. which along, within those years I met you, and I would still say I wasn't fully comfortable and confident with myself. We had a tumultuous relationship at many points, but I'd say by the time I graduated and thereafter, so yeah, I think it was an ongoing journey, but definitely wasn't like I was born that way and stayed that way. But it's interesting that you haven't seen any of you.
See, I'm learning new stuff about you.
Yeah, that's why I wanted you on. When you dive into this stuff, I think you do. But I think there's actually a lot about Nell that's similar to you. And if you think about what kind of gets under your skin the most about your kids, I don't want to say what triggers you the most because everyone says I say that too much, but what does trigger you the most about your kids? It's usually things.
I mean, they don't clean up. Stuff like that.
Yes. But
well, you don't clean up either, so it's perfect.
The
apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
But I mean even deeper than that the things that bother you the most about your kids are sometimes the things that you possess. And I have an example of this morning. I was working out in the room off the kitchen and heard you.
See, she shares way too much.
Heard you get annoyed and came out and was like, what happened? You were annoyed making pancakes, right? Did you get annoyed about something by yourself?
Yes, I'm not a good cook, so
something happened. Why did you get annoyed?
I don't know.
You told me the batter didn't.
I burnt them or something ridiculous.
But you got annoyed, enough for me to hear some vocal annoyance. And I think I said to you, I was like, I think it's good to work on, what gets us annoyed in that way. And in my mind, to set a good example, our kids weren't around, but you have often said about Nell, like she can't, not in front of her, she can't get this upset about that her sock is not folded the right way. And couldn't you say, you can't get that upset about the pancake?
Hers is more in public, but yes.
Right. So I'm just saying, I think it also...
The appropriate response for the occasion or for the, what happened.
And wouldn't you say that I sometimes say that that's something you need to work on?
Yes, definitely.
So
and something our kids definitely need to work on.
And I'm not saying that's why Nell is that way. I'm just saying I think there's similarities there. I don't think Tess is a bad loser because we were bad losers. It's not always linear that way. But it's just, I think you and Nell are similar in that way. Is there anything that feels scary about raising daughters to you?
I mean, maybe when they're dating, but yeah, we'll get there. We'll do that podcast then.
But are there things that we can...
But no, not as of yet or as of 7.5 and 5.5, no.
Well, can we get a little bit juicy and talk about some of the things that you say around them to me that maybe
No. What?
We can't?
No.
What do you mean?
What?
I'm I don't want them to grow up and I want them to want to be told things about who they are inside a little bit more than that. And of course, we talked about this last night with other couples that, there's things that, maybe our kids will see or hear and we can say, yeah, that's because we're married. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but we can't get into that. I feel like it might be helpful.
Yes.
So what are some things that you say?
In terms of what? Being affectionate or just in terms of?
Yeah. What do you say about mommy?
Oh, I'll say sexy mommy. I'll joke around and the kids will say, yeah. I mean.
Right. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because I think it's something to think about in terms of raising girls. And you could even say raising boys too. I think it goes both ways for different reasons. If we were raising boys and you were always saying that,
I would be way more self-conscious around boys. I probably wouldn't be saying that, obviously. I just think it's funnier with the girl. I don't know.
That's so interesting. I would, if we had boys and you would say that, I would say
think
to you,
it would be a little disrespectful almost if it was around boys, or
right? You wouldn't want to raise them to
Yeah, exactly. Or I would be more self-conscious about it. Now I just say it more as a joke. But there's a lot of things that come out of my mouth.
As a joke.
That is a joke. A truthful joke.
Yeah, I mean, I think it. Of course, when we're alone, it doesn't trigger me. But when we're in front of the kids and it does, it's because I want them to not grow up to just expect that that's how, their their spouse or partner will, bring them up or lift them up is what I was going to say.
Yes.
And that's why I'm say other things besides that in front of them. When I correct you in the moment, I think that's something I work on and not doing it in front of the kids because I don't want, I have a hard time not, micromanaging in that way and saying it to you at a later time or today in private. And I think you're more receptive then. In your mind, do you feel like you don't like when I do it in front of the girls, or it doesn't matter to you?
I don't think about it yet. It doesn't matter to me. Is the honest answer.
I want to bring up, and you can think if there's anything you want to bring up, 3 things that I feel like are that you have as a parent that I'm not saying are 100% because of your own childhood or anything like that, but that I'm interested to talk about. One is Matt doesn't love going out or traveling, or, you're a homebody.
I am very social, so that's
I'm not saying you're like a hermit.
But yes, if I had to choose, probably
Matt
one
has
or the
many
other.
friends. Everyone loves him. And he's out for work. But I'm saying if you could choose, you would much prefer
I'd rather
to
be home with my kids, relaxing.
Or like have staycations. Like it doesn't interest you to like.
Yes, my wife loves to travel. We travel a lot. But it's not necessarily
like at the top of your list.
It's not at the top of my list, exactly.
And I have a theory of like why, we've been together this long, of where I think it comes from. Tell me if you agree, but your parents got divorced when you were 2. So you had to be kind of shuttled back and forth.
I went back and forth every week, yeah.
And even to California to New York every 2 weeks?
Well, that was just in the summer. My mom lived in California, but we grew up here, obviously. So, yeah, I went back a week and a week. And I never knew any different when your parents get divorced at that young of an age. I think I was actually 3 or 4. It was perfect because I never knew them together. So, my normal was
them apart.
Was the latter, was them apart, which I think was great for me, which allowed me to, just get used to this new normal because I was not used to anything else.
And be loved by a lot of parents,
for sure.
When they met new people.
Yeah.
But I mean more in terms of you express sometimes that you would get immersed into your life in New York and then get nervous when it would be time to go to California or vice versa.
Well, I don't love change, and I don't think anyone really loves change as a kid. And either meeting new friends or meeting new friends in an age where it's, 11, 12, 13, where, I think a lot of people are just insecure and either in a new place or just with themselves at that period of time. My wife's a very deep person. She tries to connect these things. And
I was curious. That's what the point is.
And I don't think I'm as deep. We're nowhere near as deep.
So maybe that is why, or maybe not.
Maybe it is.
The other thing is, I would say that you're sort of the safety police in our relationship in terms of what the girls do, right?
Yes. I mean, if they're with mommy, they're walking on glass tables, they're throwing things. I mean, yeah, she's nut. Sorry.
I'm a little bit more
yes, you have way more
supportive
leeway.
Of risky play.
Yes.
And
so that I get from my mom probably. If I had to connect the dots, probably that quality in me comes from her, which I think is a good thing.
Yeah,
because it definitely balances
mean negative.
Is you. Yeah, I had, bodyguards growing up, so yeah.
Right, the 2 of them. So I think that contributes a little bit. But don't you trust when they're with me that they're obviously you're going to say yes, but do you feel there's some leniency that we could say that you can give a little bit in terms of that, or you really believe in those moments when you're like overly saying be careful?
Yes, no, you have to, especially because kids don't listen. We're dealing with this today, right? Our daughters or one of them is having a hard time listening. So that has to do with everything from, brushing their teeth to putting on their clothes to doing, behavior that could hurt them, right?
So you're saying you have to be.
You have to. Exactly.
Reminded. Like you think,
yes.
Okay, I'm going to push back on that. If you think
well,
she doesn't
wrong.
if you think if you think she doesn't listen and you think the answer is to remind more and say more, do you think that will work?
I think it beats the alternative, right?
Well, what's the alternative to you? Just not doing anything?
So maybe to step away, I don't know.
Right, there's other options.
So, what are those options?
So if she's walking too close to the sidewalk, the alternative isn't, okay, I'm just going to let her walk there. Something that I might do is maybe walk in front of her and say, floor is lava over here, so let's move closer to
those are like the ideal situations, but if there's a car coming or something, you might have to grab their arm. So
but that's not
like
telling.
An ideal, hypothetical, how sometimes you
I'm saying
have a
that
game plan for something, and then when the reality
just,
comes, you just have to do what I'm saying.
No, what you were saying is to just constantly tell them until they listen.
But I think sometimes you need to also grab them if they're about to run in the street.
Right.
I have no
problem
doing that.
I'm not saying that
Gotcha.
I was talking about constant reminders that falls flat. If you overly use it, they just tune that out. I've always said this. If you're constantly saying be careful to everything, that means nothing to kids. And that's what kind of gets under my skin about it in terms of any adult constantly saying be careful. That, it might be, oh, you're really close to the edge of the curb, or, like I said, making a game to move them further inward. I think there's other options. Like what I think, you believe when Tess isn't listening, that's who we're talking about, it's that she's not responding to the things that fall flat. Because I think when we overly use them, that's what can happen with kids. It's going over your head, or you agree?
Yeah, let's get into the juicier topics. I think half the time or half the battle between me and you is you always want to make something into the biggest deal, and I'm ready to either move on or sweep it under the rug, and you just want to talk about it. But that's you.
Yeah, why do you think that you want to sweep it under the rug, though? Was that something? This isn't bashing anyone.
No, because I'm a more shy person than you, and I don't.
So head on and confrontation is sort of uncomfortable.
Exactly. That's not what I'm looking to do.
I probably could guess that things were not.
And you're way more confrontational than me.
And comfortable talking about things, and I wouldn't think. I do remember sometimes it being addressed and sometimes not, but I feel like you probably, it was more like, let's move on, right? Growing up. And then
I'm also an only sibling, so I never had these sibling rivalries and stuff like that. So it was only me, right? So I think that was a big contributing factor to something like that too, if I had to give you an honest answer.
So the other thing that I wanted to bring up is, I've said to you, oh, my dad usually would drop us off and then park the car, or, check us into this and then we'd come and meet him. And you often want us to be doing all of that together, right? We very rarely would you want to divide and
Jen's
conquer.
Stand on this line and we'll meet you when the line's over. I'm no, you guys stand on the line with me.
Or I'll say, I'll do it then. Or today I was drop us off and you'll park, or I'll drop you guys off and I'll park, dividing and conquering. Yes. You never want to do that. You always want to be together.
Yes.
Why? Is it because you were an only child? Is it because you're uncomfortable, checking in places without me?
I'm learning things about myself today. Wow, then maybe that is.
No, or I'll be I'm going to order the coffee. Can you pick it up? You're like, no, I don't want to do that right now. I'm like, it's on your way home. And you're like, no, I don't like to go into places like that.
That is true. I don't I can't go to a restaurant by myself or, sit at the bar by myself. I'm not that.
But even
if it has to do with picking up food, I'm like, I don't really like doing that. I'm like, I'd rather go with you guys, or you run in and get it, or I'll drive.
Because you're thinking about the dynamics with the cashier?
I don't know. I'm just probably between lazy and I don't know. I really don't know. But that's definitely a quality that's probably true, that I'm a little more antisocial in that sense.
But you'd rather be all together. It just feels comfy, or
probably
it's
that. Probably that.
Or the cushions, so you don't have to deal with anything awkward.
Exactly. All the above.
What feels scary about awkward, or not even awkward?
It's nothing. It's not about awkward,
I feel
I don't feel awkward, obviously.
You're so awkward. Well, I feel like we're going to need you to come back on, because people are going to send in information that they want from you. I thought there
was going to be fan questions. I thought there was going to be way more.
No, nobody knows that we're doing this. This is a win.
A little more risque. So no, I feel good.
Thank you so much for coming on. Love you.
I love being here.
Can't wait to have you back on.
Thank you guys, Melrose, for having us. This is a great studio.
All right, Matt, where can people find you?
They can't.